Hi, and thank you for tuning in to the Daily Dose for Spiritual Growth. Today we're on Psalm 104. Now, if you've already read the Psalm, Overachiever, you may have already made the correlation from this Psalm to the book of Genesis. You see, the psalmist is actually throughout this chapter kind of retelling the creation story that we find in the first few chapters of Genesis, our first book in the Old Testament. Now, this is super exciting and timely for me because right now I'm reading through the book of Genesis. And actually, our entire youth ministry at Shrewsbury Assembly is reading through this book. There was a challenge given for our students and leaders to read it through together, just 5 chapters a week, kind of like what we do at the Daily Doses, and to really dive in beyond just hearing the Bible stories that we're familiar with, but to get a greater understanding of what God was doing and his plan for humanity. And so it's been really cool with our teens to talk about these things. Creation we did a couple weeks ago, but I remember just discovering how good our God is as he thought through every detail in creating this earth, this ecosystem, the animals, the humans, all of it. And this chapter is a retelling of that. Just a couple of verses to give you some insight into that. Verse 5, he established the earth on its foundations so that it will not be moved forever and ever. You covered it with the deep as with a garment. And the Greek or the Hebrew word used for deep here is the same word that was used in the description of that in the first chapter of Genesis. The waters were standing above the mountains. At your rebuke, they fled. At the sound of your thunder, they hurried away. The mountains rose, the valleys sank down to the place which you established for them. Yet you set a boundary for the waters that they may not cross over, so that they will not return to cover the earth. So we transitioned a little bit from the creation, and we came into another portion of the book of Genesis. Did you catch what that was? You see, this is from chapters 5 through 9 that talk about the story of Noah and the flood. And verse 9 here in Psalm 104 is specifically reminding us of the promise that God made that he would not destroy the earth again with a flood. So cool. He goes on in verse 10, you send springs into the valleys. The waters flow among the mountains. They give drink to every beast of the fields. The wild donkeys quench their thirst there. Beside them, the birds of the heavens have their nests. They lift up their voices and sing among the branches. He waters the mountains from his upper chambers. The earth is satisfied with the fruit of his work. He causes grass to grow for the cattle and all that the earth produces for cultivation by man, so that he may bring food from the earth. As you read through this chapter, what I take away is the awe and wonder over the fact that God cares about his creation. God went to such specific detail in creating it. He had a design and a plan in place to make sure that everything was taken care of, that every creature, every blade of grass, everything flying in the sky, every human would be provided for. He thought about every detail. I don't know if you're into science, but it is remarkable all the different things that had to come just together to form the ecosystems in our world. That was by the design of God himself. And as you read through this chapter, just take in the fact that God cares so much about you. He cares about every detail of your life, every need, every stress, every thought that comes in your mind. God is attentive and he cares and he wants to provide. He wants to provide for your physical needs, like we'll read about in this chapter. He wants to obviously provide for your spiritual needs, which he only can fulfill. He wants to provide for your emotional needs. God has everything we need, but are we as confidently reliant on him as the creation that he created all around us? Because we too are a part of that creation. Take some time to think today about how God has provided for you. You see, oftentimes we put a lot of focus on how we need to provide for ourselves, or maybe we need to provide for others and meet their needs. But ultimately, the source of our fulfillment must come from God. And so how has God shown himself faithful in providing for your physical needs? How has God shown faithful for providing for your spiritual needs, your emotional needs, your relational needs? Who has God provided in your life? His blessings are all around us, and it shows and is evidence of the care he has for you. So take some time to recognize and be thankful for how God has provided your needs. Hey, I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you again tomorrow for another Daily Dose for Spiritual Growth.